Do you know what time it is, ladies and gentlemen? It's Cosmonarchy time. We've got Neblime taking on Hamster, Game 2 coming up on Titanforge. Let's see if they're the same races. It looks like they are. So, Neblime, our green Zerg in the bottom left, will be facing off against Hamster, who now is down a game in the series, our light blue Protoss in the top left. And because you can do this in Cosmonarchy, we have over 100 player colors in Cosmonarchy, and you can see here, it's not just any green, it's vine green. And it's not just any light blue, it's electric blue. And so there you have it for the sticklers in the audience who want to know the precise color. There you go. I've got you covered in this game and no other game. The previous match was just straight yellow against electric blue. I can tell you that just from memory. But nonetheless, we have Titanforge here. This has... I'm wondering if this is the updated version. It looks like it is. So previously you saw in the Terran versus Terran, if you caught that particular match, Newt versus the Shambler, both of them playing the Terran race. There were phalanx spots over here, which could be used to attack into this base and destroy the main area, like the mining center and stuff like that. So that has been patched away in this update. It's a pretty minor change, but overall something that just basically deals with like a pocket strategy that you can do. I feel like it's kind of nice that phalanxes are the longest range artillery in the game that isn't the diadem, the ion cannon, because it kind of gives you the idea that up until the end of the game in terms of tech, or like the middle of the game, I guess, in terms of length, because sometimes you can have end game tech come out, say 30 minutes, but then the game might go on for another 20, 30 minutes, depending on how it is. We have had bangers before. The main thing that I would say about that is that, you know, from a map design perspective, you know that the diadem is going to break a lot of things anyway in terms of map balance. So it is something that you got to kind of prime yourself for. But at the very least, you can just think of yourself as just trying to balance around the phalanx's range. And then you worry about everything else a little bit later. Like, let the game balance worry about whether diadems are reasonable. Now, this time around, once again, we have the in-base up by the ramp hatch for Neblime, very similar to what he did on Omnivore in the previous match, and now he's got the Quaseth pool coming over here. And so, of course, Hamster is having a good time, just tickling it a little bit, reminding Neblime who's boss, and we do have a second gateway coming out with a Zealot coming nice and early. This is before the Dracodon, so the Dracodon now queued up there. That's the replacement for the Dragoon, for those Brood Warheads who are checking this out for the first time, or one of the first times. We even have a nice demonstration of flash shielding. So in all Protoss units and structures, when you take shield damage, if you're out of combat for 2 seconds after that, as in you haven't taken damage for 2 seconds, you will actually receive your shields back at a rate of 10 per second. And that is obviously very good for stutter stepping, and maybe not as good for things like the Zealot, which is more likely to be in action the whole time. So the Zealot is just going to walk straight past the Kagran Cesiant. Makes sense. Going to harass with the Scribe. This should look very similar to anybody who's played PvZ. Now the Zealot and the Drolath both trying to do their things. However, in Cosmonarchy, drilling is a little bit more efficient. And now we've got two pairs of Quasilisks that have just emerged, as well as an Ovileth. So this actually could be a nice little drop, or maybe a Kagran drop, actually, as, yeah, it looks like, oh yeah, I can see you there, Neblime. He's going after it. He knows what's up, so there you have it. We've got the Scribe picked off, the Zealot falling away, and it looks like it's not actually for an offensive tactic. Oh, look, I wonder what he was trying to do. I feel like he was trying to do something cheeky and try to, like, body block him in or something. That's pretty funny. I thought he was just going to fly across the map with that, but we got two Dracodons emerging. The Drolath has hidden in the Shambler spot. We call this the Shambler tactic, when you hide your worker with a burrow. And somebody tries to go find it. Normally, though, it's like by the entryway, so I guess this isn't the Shambler. That's not the Shambler special. That's like because this is like a one-way path. You can't actually get back to the rest of the map from the top right. So he's actually just going to guard and see, you know, are you ever going to take your third in that spot or whatever. Meanwhile, I do think he spotted the Dracodons, but I think he only spotted 2. So I don't think he's aware that there's actually 4 of them plus the Zealot. This can be broken. The Circuit is powerful, but 4 Dracodons, they're dealing 15 damage apiece. You subtract 3, so they're dealing 12 damage apiece. But that's still, you know, you're talking about, what is that, 60 damage a pop or something crazy? So the Zealot should be with this army, trying to absorb some of that damage, because it will obviously take some damage as a result. But hey, you can use the flash shielding here, and if you don't have anything to force a fight, like you don't have the cliff advantaged Kagrant, or you don't have things like the oh, well, hold on. We have a kerfluffle. We have a kerfluffle, ladies and gentlemen. We have a situation that Ovileth was in fact used for more than just migration. It was used for a different kind of migration, Quasilisks, into the enemy base. And I guess that's why the Zealot is returning home. Meanwhile, the Quasilisks down here did indeed get bopped. I kind of feel like you could charge forward, kill the Circuit, and just leave. And maybe that's something that is being considered here by Hamster. He's trying to stay away from this, but the cliff advantage is giving the Circuit a little bit more power. Nonetheless, I still think he's going to be okay. Back at home, there have been some worker losses, but honestly, being within 6 workers but having your second Nexus up, I feel like Hamster is still okay. He's unfortunately queued up 2 more Draken, and so he's kind of in an all-in position. If he hadn't spent, 125 minerals a pop on those bad boys, that would have been, 5 workers worth of resources that he could have done. Now, meanwhile, we have more and more static defense coming online. Hamster needs to just muscle through this. He's popped one of them. He's going to stutter step through, or he should be stutter stepping through. He has no idea that this Circuit is about to come online, and that is going to be a bit of a problem. So he should just step away from that, and he has popped the Ovaleth. Now he can think about muscling up that ramp, or at the very least, denying this natural. So this is a high-action game. We're not going to be seeing like the multi-base play out of this situation, I don't think. I feel like Hamster is indeed still a little bit too all-in, and he's taken some bruisings onto the Drakodons. You can escape the Circuit attack if you walk away from its range or out of its range. We've got some workers trying to body block here, because there is nothing coming online besides some Quasilisks. That's not the army that you need over here. Instantly trying to remutate that Circuit after the regression kicks in, because when you lose your structure as Zerg, it just turns into what it was previously. And same for the units, actually. The Zealot now engaging the Quasis back at home. That is going to tie up a heavy amount of the DPS, what little there is versus armor, for Neblime. He is desperately trying to mutate static defense to see if he can hold. One of these Drakodons almost destined to fall. Instead, he's actually luring more and more workers out here. And now, look at this, the worker count shifting in Hamster's favor. Maybe we can see an actual game out of this. But double Circuits finishing over here. The Drakodons cannot end the game in this situation, but look, Neblime has 8 workers to Hamster's 18. He's producing only 1 at a time. He's barely got any military to speak of, just a single Hydralisk and 4 Quasis to really do anything about. Now, this Circuit is kind of keeping these Drakodons pinned. We've got 2 more on the way. 2 Zealots on the way. The Zealots are a big deal. A Warden defensively in case another Ovaleth is put down, but actually sniping the Ovaleth was huge there, because it completely takes the teeth out of any potential Neblime counterattack. Once those 2 Zealots arrive, and he has so many of these Drakodons, okay, here we go. He's actually going to try to muscle up over here just to get rid of this so he can leave a little bit easier. And that's a smart move. I mean, he maybe luckily had a full HP Drakodon take the initial aggro, despite moving forward with a wounded one, a couple of wounded ones actually. And so now I think he actually can go in and see what he can do. We've got the Drolets back again, trying to see what they can do to sort of body block. And Hamster's right. He actually just attacked his own Zealot, but Hamster's right to just pick off those workers. You know what I mean? One more salvo could have killed that Hydra as well. He did lose a couple of Drakodons too many on the way out, but this is still totally doable for him. This burrowed worker up in the top right, that means that there are 9 workers mining right now. Boys and girls, Neblime is not having a good time of it. I feel like we're locked in for a Hamster dub, and we're going to go to a game 3 without it just being a show match, but also with, Neblime actually needing to fight for the dub for the series overall, because I really don't know how Hamster could possibly end up dropping this, especially as Neblime. When you see that the second Nexus is already up and you weren't able to do too much, like you must know that behind this the economic engine is not looking good for you. But hey, he's sticking into it thick and thin. What can he do about that? I like the Ovaleth rotations, but I do feel like flaunting right in front of the Drakodons kind of took any opportunity for him to have a counterattack out. And then obviously we had the Warden come up, and now we've got reinforcements being built. We even have 2 Drakodons being stationed here for safety, an embassy on the way, so a counter transport can indeed happen. This Scribe is coming down over here. I'm interested in what that's all about. I wonder if that was like a misrally. Looks like it's heading over to the bottom right. And now, yeah, Hamster's going to actually change course, so I guess he's just scouting around for additional bases. We do have a sort of pocket base happening at the, I guess you would call that the 2 o'clock base, right? And so that's a little interesting. Definitely not where you would expect to go, but you got to take risks in this situation if you want to come back. Aurora's on the way out of the Stargate. This is a very cheap and expendable unit that when it takes damage, fatal damage, it will fly into kamikaze style any ground units in the area. By itself, it's not enough to do things like kill a worker, but if you get 2 or 3 of them, you can be in pretty good shape. At this point, though, Neblime is very clearly fearing a gateway flood, and that's why he's going for the Zorka's Shroud. I just don't think he has the economy to really do anything. He's behind by, 18 workers. This Hatrosk here in the top right is going to take a long time to come online, and he can't reinforce it directly. You need tier 2 in order to access the Nidus, so there's really not that much that you can do. And the Aurora is over here just seeing what it can accomplish by scouting around, forcing another worker to turn into static defense because Neblime feels pressured to cover his workers with a Spraith. And, Neblime's getting a good read on a Hamster's getting a good read on exactly what Neblime has up there. But only the 5 Dracodons so far, not really able to do too much there. Hasn't scouted the top right after all, so 2 o'clock now starting to come online. Well, at least it's finished. We'll have to wait and see exactly what's happening there. If the Zorka's Shroud comes online, this could drag out for a little bit longer, but we do have double Dracodon coming. We've got the Land Effect, the Stargate here, and I guess what Neblime is probably thinking is, well, my opponent doesn't exactly know what to do with Protoss. He might know what Zerg are all about because he's played a lot of Zerg, but he doesn't necessarily know what to do with Protoss. He hasn't played a lot of Protoss, so maybe I can just surprise him, maybe go for him during a scaling factor, and here you can see that kamikaze behavior in action. It just softens up a little bit of the units there. I might have even popped before hitting, in fact, and if that's the case, then even better, right? Because it didn't actually end up doing that much damage at all. Normally, I think it deals 20 damage in an area, so it definitely pops before actually applying that damage. Third base coming online for Hamster. I was certain this game would end before third base, but I can be wrong. And it looks like maybe, just maybe, Neblime has held on long enough to see if he can make an exciting game out of this. We did see 3 Lachesis come out. They were actually coming out of this top right base, and they're going to try to wander directly into the worker line. As soon as this gets stepped on, of course, by Hamster, he should be able to see it, and then the Wardens can do stuff, but he's reacting a little bit lackadaisically, and he is losing some workers here. Again, though, I can't get super excited about this. Those 3 Lachesis were a lot of investment, not just in the tech, but also the resources for the Lachesis itself, and we still have more than double the workers here for Hamster, who is about to get his 3rd Nexus online for even more worker production, all the while having an embassy. So he has 4 worker queues in this moment. Looks like this worker is just harvesting distantly, returning to the neutral treasury. It's definitely a far cry from where it could be. You could actually harvest a bit faster from this area, and definitely from the gas as well. This forced posturing over here, but the sheer number of Dracodons, the 2 Gladiuses, the Land Effect as well for scouting. He's actually about to spot the Kagro over here and just step on this forward post before the natural even comes online. And, okay, yeah, sure, put a Spraith down, but this is accessible by ground, so it really is not going to work out too well. The Zethra gets destroyed on the way, so that will indeed confirm for Neblime that he is about to be under attack. This Scribe is holding the left-hand side, and Izira is going to charge over there and reveal itself, but beyond that, I mean, what are you going to do? Try to attack into this? We've got an Engram being warped in, a Warden back there, Gladius, couple Dracodons. The rest of the force is indeed setting itself up here, and you can just leave 1 or 2 Dracodons over here to deny any mining. Meanwhile, this is pretty much all of Neblime's army. He is making some Skither behind this, no saturation in the natural expansion. He is committing pretty hard to try to kill these Dracodons, and he will do so, but he's losing all of his pressure as a result, and now 2 o'clock is 100% dead. There's absolutely no way that it can really do anything. He killed 0 workers, and he needed to basically kill half of the workers that Hamster had with that move. Maybe see if he could bypass that entirely, just charge up to the top right, abuse the fact that he's got the mobility advantage. If he even knew top right was up, I think maybe if he did know, that would actually be a GG. But the Ski-Back Scab is out. This is allowing the Skither to exist. He might be able to maybe charge in and see if he can pop out some of these workers. But I still feel like the defenses are a little bit too powerful there. And so the Hatrosk is going to be left wisely. Hamster is just moving away with the rest of his army, so only using 3 workers or 3 Dracodons to account for that 2 o'clock base. The rest of his forces are going to be on the way over here. A lot of Skither, that's where Neblime is putting all of his money. And I don't think it's going to be enough. I mean, there's only the 1 Land Effect, and I don't even know where it is. Actually, it's coming on down now. So not that much splash damage, admittedly, but sustained damage with the Dracodons. And look at this, the Hatrosk is indeed going to be bopped in the meantime. The Land Effect might actually just die. At least it looks like it'll just get moved off to the distance. I'm wondering where those Skither went. They're kind of hovering down here, not being revealed just yet. The larva actually backfiring onto the circuit there, allowing the bounces while they're alive. And finally, this base in the 2 o'clock position is going to be felled. Hamster realizes, wait a sec, there's only anti-air defenses over here. The workers are now pulled. Surely this is going to be the GG. Bit of a one-sided match, but there were opportunities here for the Zerg player in Neblime to be able to do a little bit more. However, we do have a second match, and so let's head on over to Pantheon. Ladies and gentlemen, the latest in jungle maps for you. Now, this map has actually been around for a while, since the Ascension 7 days. You can see the minimap scaling is a little bit off here. This is a map by Veek7. This is something that we want to try to fix on the engine level, is make the minimap scaling better to account for map sizes like this, which weren't originally possible in the native engine. So, you know, it's just something that we have to improve to make it fully operational. But Hamster is on the board. And now we're going to see which one of these is going to come out on top. Neblime getting bamboozled with his early agreed style, if you want to call it that. I don't even know if you can call it super greedy per se, but, you know, it's more like Hamster tried to be aggressive with that Zealot and Scribe combo. Very much a Brood War type tactic. Cool to see in action, and something that we are grateful is even feasible within Cosmonarchy, because really, it's weird to say. It's like a combination of the game state being very different, so people getting used to what's possible, and then on top of it, the pacing being a little bit slower. And then on top of that, a lot of our players aren't really melee players. Like Neblime is the closest we have to like a consistent melee player. As far as I understand, he's like a B rank Terran player in Brood War by default. He's involved in CPL, Coach People League. He's involved on a lot of the initiatives to have people play Cosmonarchy, Brood War a little bit more, you know, commonplace or whatever, but he loves Cosmonarchy. He's a big fan. He wants to see it succeed. And so we love people with that kind of attitude too. However, Hamster has also been very much enjoying the project, and, you know, these two do duke it out, where it was a very narrow best of 7, all 7 game grand final for Ascension number 7, 7th tournament that we ran. And now as we move into year 2, where our tournament series is going to be called Acropolis, I'm very interested to see if these can repeat their form as top players. We haven't had a huge influx just yet. Actually, look at this, Neblime scouting up for proxies. Not sure what's going on with Hamster, but obviously now we actually see the worker. A little bit of a kerfluffle, nothing too much to mention. So I'll take this opportunity to remind you guys that if you like what you see with Cosmonarchy, you want to see it become even better, you want to put your money where your mouth is, or you just want to put your time where your mouth is and hop into our Discord server, you can do both of those things. The coffee link in the description, as well as in the bottom right of the screen here, is available for you to send in your donations if you so desire. And at the same time, you can also just pop into our Discord server, another thing that you can find in the description there, and you can join us, play this game, experience the future of the real-time strategy genre, because that's what we think it is. And you know what? Even if you don't yet agree, and you're still a little bit dubious about that, you got to admire our gusto, our balls, our gonads, our cojones, our family jewels. Be part of the family at the No Frauds Club. Join us. The Quasilisks are indeed going to make the Scribe join them, because the Quasilisk will certainly die, and the Scribe has fallen a little bit earlier. So that's just the way that things go. Workers have been traded. Expansions are coming online for both players, although obviously because Neblime has gone for an instant expansion instead of his in-base hatch, he actually does have access to that a little bit faster. Now in Cosmonarchy, though, it's worth pointing out that worker saturation works a little bit differently. So when you have these mineral fields, you want 2 workers per mineral field and 2 workers per gas node as well for like even 100% efficiency. So if you have 2 geysers, you want to put 2 workers on each geyser and then oversaturate after that, because the 3rd worker still gives you half efficiency approximately, but it's not the same thing as obviously getting a fully efficient worker. That's how the mineral fields work too. It's very consistent. We try to make it consistent between all the nodes. Now, at the same time, that doesn't mean that expanding is not useful, because it does give you a foothold in new locations. It gives you access to more gas nodes, which obviously saturate a lot faster, since you just need 2 workers on your home gas node in order to saturate it. And so if you are looking for more Vespene, expanding is usually the best way to do that. If you're looking for more minerals, then you want to conserve your minerals for expanding so that you can spike them a little bit faster. But then you also have to ask yourself, what about, you know, falling behind because of your worker count? What about falling behind because of your opponent getting more production queues on you? And for Zerg in particular, it makes a lot of sense to build macro hatches, but it also can make sense to do this on a map like Pantheon, where it is a lot more straightforward and safe for how you expand. So we do have a couple of odds and ends over here. Neblime thinking about what he wants to do. Drakadon's just poking their heads in, revealing the Quasilisks. They get a little antsy over there. Double Circuit so early is a little bit interesting, and Neblime even going a step further. He did have his Ovaleth fly over there. It doesn't look like he was able to confirm too much, but he did probably see the lattices. We do have Vassals out. They are the only available air unit for Protoss in the early game that doesn't require you to spend a pretty good amount of money on the Stargate. So if you're thinking about how to get air units without spending a lot of Vespene, or indeed any Vespene at all, it's the Vassal. But it's predictably a weak unit, doesn't deal a lot of DPS, doesn't survive a beating, a shellacking, absolutely will get bopped. So you got to be a little bit careful with it. You can use it for scouting and keeping Zergs honest. And you can also use it to harass workers, although they can just burrow if they're in that situation. So in PvZ in particular, it can be interesting to leverage it because Zerg tends to have weak units that can be focused down, you know, on an individual basis by things like vassals. They can use, of course, Quasis, Nathricors, Skithricors, as well as the Spraithesant here to deal with your wanton air rampage. And it looks like that's exactly what we're going to be seeing out of Hamster here. He is still producing some ground army, but it's very, very conservative, very mild. The Avaleth scouting out the natural, seeing the saturation, sees, okay, my opponent is indeed going for a macro game. Meanwhile, at the same time, we do have a Witness flying in over here to scout things out, and the Vassal Swarm is indeed soon going to be upon them. So this Hatrosk will probably have to get canceled. Looks like it's just going to be flown over. Honestly, I would have probably thought about, flying over just to confirm the workers and see what you can do there. But you've got enough vassals here that you can actually attack and contest the Hydras and the Quasis. So that's something to think about. Like, the Witness doesn't need to be in this control group, obviously. He can just sort of sit around and watch, but is a little bit wary of the Avaleth allowing it to be sniped. And there you go. They dive in, they pick off a Quasi, they dive back, they let the flash shielding go. This is where you might think about building some anti-air, specifically some air units. As Neblime, you think about Nathricors or Skithricors, but this is a pretty heavy mineral investment into the situation. And it's an interesting location that the Hatrosk is even going down in, right? So that's another thing to keep in mind. We've got 13 vassals. They can continue to contest this army. The Avaleth steps a little bit too far forward and gets bruised ever so slightly. The Hydralisks are taking a lot less damage, relatively speaking, because they reduce the 6 damage to 5 per hit, and they have a higher health pool than the Quasis as well. That's based on their armor, obviously. So, you know, you're talking about... oh, this is funny. At some point, he'll have to order them to burrow or something. They got decollided, I think, because of the eggs or something. I'm actually not really sure what happened there, but that's pretty funny. Nice little vortex there for you. I'm pretty sure you can just order them to stop and then burrow, but maybe Neblime is trying that right now and thinking to himself, what the hell's going on there? He's actually stacked them up. This is hacking, dude. You can't do that. There you go. Fixed. Absolutely fixed. This Spraith will deal with that. Meanwhile, there's just a horde of Zerg moving through the middle of the map. This is a map where if you're looking for tips on how to play Pantheon, since it is going to be in the Invitational, holding your opponent's mid-ramp can be really, really effective at dictating map control throughout the rest of the map. You can see here, a Hamster has to cancel his interior 3 o'clock that is going to be your average third base, but it is very open, right? And so if you don't have access to mid, you can absolutely get bamboozled. There's a lot of Quasis and a lot of Hydras, and I really don't think that the Vassals are going to be able to fare too well against that. They need some kind of front line to distract for them if they're going to be in a major fight, or maybe to abuse terrain, sort of like what they're doing right now. They are indeed slowing things down quite a bit. More Vassals scouting out that the incoming army is... well, incoming. And the Drakadens are doing their best to harass on the way in, but now the workers are potentially going to be harassed. There is a Warden in the back line there. Attack move is causing some of the units to attack workers, some of the units to attack, infrastructure that isn't too good, and the vassal flank comes in to clean up the rest of the forces. So, I feel like Neblime probably could have just focused on trying to kill one target, like the Drakadens there, but he has killed a couple of workers. He is still behind workers, but he's now up in tempo. He can take another base. Indeed, he is. Still guarding these bases, keeping track of whether or not a third is on the way for Hamster. And meanwhile, a prostration stage has arrived. This is going to allow you to have pariahs on the way. And I think that's a great choice because, again, I was just talking about front lines. We've got golems coming out. We don't have a crazy back line anymore because a lot of the vassals have died and a lot of the Drakadens have died. So you will need to continue producing Drakadens and maybe, continue producing some other structures that can provide you with a more verifiable backline. But despite that, Zethicor scouting out this force over here that's flying over just to confirm perhaps that there is indeed a third base on the way. Nothing on the interior 9, but this is more like a 7 o'clock base, or maybe 6.5. We'll say 7. We try to round up instead of having whole numbers. And yeah, zoned away immediately by the mass Hydras. If you can get pariahs on top of them, this absolutely can be a pretty good choice. It's just that you need something in the backline to finish the job after, and you probably need more than one pariah. But golems are really good for that too as well. So I wouldn't be surprised as we do indeed see 12 o'clock being taken, or maybe 1 o'clock. This is 12. We'll call that 12. We'll call this 6. That's the deal. Avaleth probably spotted it out. Definitely some Zethicor spotted it out as well, since we see the corpses over there. And you can attack into this from this angle, right? So this is another thing that you got to be all aware on this map. It is a little bit hard to take your satellite bases. Ironically, going into for the middle of the map and taking one of those bases might be a little bit safer because the pathways are a bit more straightforward. But we already have a response team here from Hamster. He is going to flank with the vassals yet again. That served him very, very well during the commitment into the natural. Trying to focus down the workers. It's not a bad idea. Neblime is ahead in workers anyway, but the problem is this leaves the army at full power, and Hamster has a very scary army. Crucially, the golems have all stayed alive, albeit one of them very wounded, and both pariahs are fully around as well. That is a really scary situation to be in. We have no enhanced static defense, the Iral Iris isn't even done yet, and we've got another prostration stage coming online. This should be the go signal. Hamster should at least, at minimum, knock out 6 o'clock and move to choke out Neblime at his natural. I really don't know what kind of things that Neblime can do in this situation. He's not adding more static defense. He's certainly not going to be adding any heavy units. His Hydras are getting caught in translation as they try to move through and rotate down to that 6 o'clock base. And there's no crowd control over here, so at the very least, it's not like pariahs are shredding them, but look at this stack. Yeah, falling back into the workers sounds like a great idea under normal circumstances, but you can see this pariah just deal an astronomical of damage each time. And now the golems and the Drakidins and the idols dealing plenty of backline damage. These circuits are not going to be enough, and Neblime has to call GG there. Hamster getting on the board and then finishing the series after initially going down. That is our 3-game set between Neblime and Hamster. Hamster's Protoss reigning supreme. Nobody thought that was going to happen. Well, I look forward to seeing what happens in the future if these players decide to stick with their respective races. Neblime was talking about going back to Terran. Hamster, I'm not sure what he's interested in doing. He's switched over to Protoss for the time being, but he might play as Terran in the event if somebody can't show up to the group, as mentioned in the Omnivore game. Hope you guys appreciated this cast over set. We'll be back with more videos in the future. Stay tuned.